I'm not either.
Oh, there we go. This is live.
All right, we are live, Washington WREIA for November 2020. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm sitting here with Jim Howe, and we just decided to launch right into this meeting. Jim is going to be our quote unquote our member of the month, and we are just talking about a lot of different things before we came on. Jim has kind of bounced back and forth between grandchildren, between DC Metro and also Colorado. So we were just kind of waxing poetically about skiing down those beautiful mountains. And you were saying you guys were loving hiking. So Jim, why don't you just start out and we'll get into some of that. But
yeah, sure.
Folks know, the reason we're doing this, as I told you kind of offline, is that I really noticed, especially in this time of a COVID, just the connection. And we just want WREIA members to kind of get to know each other a little bit more. I've been trying to ask people that I believe are great resources for folks. So I know you certainly are. So maybe tell folks kind of how you got started or interested in the real estate business.
Oh, yeah. Easy to do. I remember it was yesterday. So that's about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. Right after the crash, I was out at a friend's house in California, in Berkeley, and for a guy's birthday party. And I knew that this other fellow was going to lose his job, and it was pretty imminent. So I said, "Hey, Steve, what are you going to do?" And he said, "I've been looking at real estate investing." I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll send you a link to this meeting that we're going to have, or that's going to be in Virginia." So that was a little bit longer than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That was with Mark Kohler. You may remember him from.
I do.
Yeah. So I sat through that. Both Lynn and I did, and we got inspired, and we bought into some courses, some education, and next thing I know, I'm in a meeting in Philly with you and Justin, and listening to somebody else, and Justin approached me, and shortly thereafter, and we bought into the courses and really endeavor to educate ourselves. I mean, really just dove into it. So these were videos, these were manuals. I knew nothing. That was as cold as could be on real estate investing. Best investment I ever made, really, because steered me toward you and Justin. And then I started to go to the WREIA meetings and try to make them all as I can, even virtual.
Right.
So, and you gave me this opportunity to and remember at that time you could throw a dart on the wall and hit REOs, bank-owned properties, anywhere,
right?
And they were everywhere. So I was going into 3, 4, 5 a day, and I was taking notes. I was looking around, seeing what each house needed. I'd spend about anywhere between 20 and 40 minutes, and I'd take about 20 to 30 pictures. And that was really the beginning of wholesaling. I didn't really have a clue, but you taught me quite a bit, and I learned a bunch from these courses. And I would come home and draft up the notes and explain what my premise was and what the after repair value would be, how much was needed in order to fix the property up to make it palatable, to make it marketable.
Right.
Then I'd throw it out to you, and you'd say it was a green light or a red light, and then so that was doing wholesaling. And so I really learned the craft there. At the same time, simultaneously, this friend of mine who had got involved in real estate, he was out in Chicago. So I went to visit him and threw some money his way, invested in some of the bank-owned properties that he was buying up and rehabbing. So I was loaning money at the same time.
Right.
And that can be lucrative, as you know. I mean, it's about 15% and 2 percentage points up front. So it kept us going. Then eventually I wanted to get into rehabbing. And your help and Justin's help, I started to find some houses to rehab.
Right.
But at the same time, I had encouraged Linda to become a realtor. So
Linda's your wife?
I'm sorry. Yeah, Linda's my wife. Yeah, these are my grandkids, by the way. I got 7 grandkids now. We have 4 kids.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, time passes, but yeah. And so I kind of persuaded her, twisted her arm to become a realtor. She did, but that gave me information. So information was vital to what I wanted to do. I had to get good comps, good comparable values of houses. So she helped me do that. I was able to do that and go into houses again. And at this time, also we started to delve into probate. So probate's its own niche. It's kind of interesting. And we did fairly well there. And so we were, if a person didn't want to, if they didn't want to buy the house, if they didn't want me to buy the house, because I was buying them a deep discount.
Sure.
Usually these were distressed properties or distressed owner.
Sure.
Well, owners pass. They don't want the property. They just want the money.
Right.
So if they didn't want that, then I would introduce them to Linda, and often she would take them on as a client and be their broker, be their realtor.
Right.
So we did a number of properties that way. Then about 4 years ago, we moved to Colorado. As I said, I have 4 kids, and one of them lives in Colorado. And she has 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. And we had determined our big priority in life is our family. So we had determined that we really want to spend a lot of time with our kids or grandkids rather, while they're really young, just to have a big influence on them.
Sure.
Which is possible.
And that kind of leads to the second thing we're going to is your interest outside of work obviously is your family, and you're back here now helping out with your other daughter, right?
Yeah.
Kids. So you're back in DC area, and so outside of playing with the grandkids, what are some other 1 or 2 hobbies? I see a guitar in the background. I know you like to ski, and
I play guitar. I love all kinds of music, from standards to bluegrass to whatever. And I love skiing. I mean, I got bit hard probably back in when I was in my 20s, which was, did they have skis then? I can't remember. Anyway, so I got bit, but and I moved out to Tahoe when I was very young. So just but yeah, I skied a lot out in Colorado. Love to read books. I'll read anything they put in front of me practically.
Yeah, in fact, Jim is one of the members that occasionally sends me a book referral, which I do appreciate, because I also like to read. So occasionally he'll read a good business book and he'll send it my way. What about with WREIA? Obviously, we encourage and we love when new people kind of join us and kind of come in, kind of like you were. Kind of your story is not too dissimilar to mine. I got introduced to it, bought a course, took some training, and kind of went out there and kind of ham and egg my way, if you will, to trying to learn it. But what's some advice for someone brand new? We're going through this COVID. Obviously, people are incomes are for some are very unstable now. The future is a little scary. I think this year has all taught us that there's no absolutes in this life, and things can change in a dime. So just 1 or 2 things, maybe advice for someone kind of coming into the business. Any words of wisdom for them?
Yeah, I thought about that, and I think the strongest advice I could give is just do it. I mean, Nike's got the great motto, if you can educate yourself and can really get inspired about things, but there's analysis paralysis. There's fear, but you got to fall forward. You got to fail forward, and you got to fail fast. And I mean, it's the best way to learn. I think everybody's going to make mistakes. You can learn not to repeat the mistakes that somebody else made.
Right.
But I feel that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to stumble. So you just keep doing it. And if you do your homework, do your work, find a good mentor. You serve for me as a mentor extraordinaire. So Justin, read a lot on what you need to know, and then just do the work. It's simple.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And it's hard, but it's simple.
It's not get rich quick overnight. We all know that.
No.
It's like anything. Sure.
you can pick up rentals along the way, as I've done, and we've done, and that is long-term wealth.
How about that 5 to 10 year mark? I mean, what are your plans the next few years? It sounds like you're gonna hang around and help, spend some time with your grandchildren. Any other things that you see in the next few years?
Yeah, I've noticed that the grandkids tend to find their way about 7 or 8 years. Mimi and Pa don't mean so much to them as they do when they're like 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. So at some point, we're going to find a permanent residence again, and then have them come to us.
There you go.
But that's probably where I'm headed. And the last part is that I want to leave each of my kids a couple rentals. So, I'm still working on that.
Good. Well, Jim, I appreciate it. You want to throw out a phone number or an email if you're open to it, call you, ask you a question. You've certainly been through the ups and downs of the market. So what's a contact information for you if anyone wants to reach out?
Yeah, sure. It's 202-391-1295. I'm going to type it into the notes, 202-391-1295. And the easiest email to use is probably Jim Howell, my name, JIMHOWELL @kw.com. I mean, yes, I'm a realtor and realtor with Keller Williams. That was part of what I did along the way. So it's an easy one to remember, Jim Howell @kw.com.
Yeah, if you want to chat that, type that in the notes, that'd be great. Well, Jim, I appreciate it. It's great to see you. Great to catch up with you. Take care, and we'll be in touch soon.
All right. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me kind of dial this back. Well, again, thanks everyone for joining us. Hope that was okay that we started out with that. Jim and I were just having a great conversation, so we kind of wanted to keep moving. If you're joining me tonight and you want to say hello and do a little networking, say where you're from, that would be fine too. As we start, I often tell you, please don't hesitate to type in a question. This sometimes is tough, as I'm just speaking into a blank screen. So hopefully folks are out there and getting some good value out of this presentation. I'm excited about tonight. Tonight is a presentation that I believe in wholeheartedly. I said in some of our build up to this that this might be the most important meeting that you'll ever attend. And why I say that is, if you can pick up some of these strategies and techniques, and more importantly, implement them into your business, this stuff can literally change your life. That it really can. Now, obviously tonight, when we have a half hour to 40 minutes, it's not end all. It's not everything. As even Jim said, you take some training, you take some ideas, you expand on it, you do a lot of reading. Maybe you find a mentor or somebody that can help you out, guide you along the way. But by implementing these things, especially tonight, we're not talking about a quick flip. We're not talking about even a buy, renovate, and sell. We're talking about identifying something that you can hold on to for whatever, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years. Maybe these are legacy properties. Maybe these are properties that you can hold and pass on to your kids or grandkids someday. So I'm going to give you a lot of information tonight, and hope that you can take this and apply it. So as we go, property of the month, I'm going to run through this a little quick because we went a little bit long there with Jim. But the property of the month, if you saw the video, was a property that I first bought post-college. It was the very first property I bought. I was an energetic, young, enthusiastic, hardworking person, if you will, and I knew I wanted to own a house. I didn't necessarily want to rent. Now, at the time, I was a painting contractor, so I had ladders and vans and different tools. I couldn't live where ideally I wanted to, and that was closer down to DC, maybe Arlington at the time, maybe Bethesda, probably more so. I had a couple of roommates that I wanted to move in with, but I knew I needed some space. I needed to store some materials, had a couple of vans, things of that nature. So I was on the hunt to buy my first property, and that property I highlighted was one that was right near the Shady Grove Metro. At that time, that was boondocks, meaning that was kind of a couple exits pretty far out. There were some new townhouses being built. I had to wait to get 1 year of income under my belt and a tax return, because at that point I didn't really have a tax return in order to buy something. So I scouted out this property. I knew it was in right near the metro, and I figured long term it would be a good investment. Ideally, I went into it looking for a place to live, to be quite honest. I didn't really know much about real estate at the time, but I did buy it. And as I said in the video, I had a couple of roommates. They were kind of an odd couple together, but they did pay the rent. And literally after they paid me the rent, now mortgage rates back then were about 9%, which that's hard to fathom right now, but they're about 9%. So my payment was roughly about $1,000, $1,050 at the time. And each roommate paid $400. So I was living for a couple $100 a month. So it worked out well. I was building equity and I had my rent basically paid for. Now, again, I stumbled into that. That wasn't planned. That wasn't some grand scheme. That was, I needed a place to live. I had a couple roommates and they paid it. Now, I did figure it out that it was a pretty good deal. And I only lived there for a couple of years. And then I bought another new place a couple exits out in Germantown. Now, again, Germantown was farm country back then, folks. It was out in the middle of nowhere. I bought another brand new townhouse. I like the newness of places. And folks, these townhouses were nice at the time. We had no furniture. We had really basically nothing. It was just kind of a chair, a TV, and a few things in the fridge. So, but then I took these roommates and I went up to Germantown and I did it again. So the long and short of this property of the month is I kept these properties over time. The one in Germantown, I actually did a 1031 many years ago to a property in Lansdowne, Virginia, but I've kept that one in Shady Grove for many years. And I bought it for about a $110 brand new, and it's worth about $450 now, and it generates about $2,000 a month. I have taken a credit line, a loan against it when it was paid off. I took a line of credit to use in other parts of my business, but it's been a very, very good investment for a very long time. And that's the point of tonight. The point of tonight is I want to get everyone here that does not own a rental property to understand how you can do it. And if you own rental properties, my hope is that this will reinvigorate you, knowing that coming up in the next year or two might be an opportunity for you to strike to buy a few more or do some starker exchanges, meaning taking some properties and maybe ramping it up a little bit. You can use that starker. Now, we don't know with the new administration, we don't know new laws, we don't know any of that, but the hope is that that starker exchange will be alive and well. We can take some of this equity that we build up and starker exchange things up and out, maybe to a commercial property, maybe to a couple properties, maybe to a more expensive property, maybe to a property in another state. So there are lots of things that we can do with rental properties. But let's get started. And again, if you have any questions, if you want to just write them down, we'll try to get to them as they come in. If not, we'll certainly answer them after this presentation. The first part of this, way I want to kind of tackle this, if you will, is I want to give you a step-by-step guide, kind of 12 steps to realize your dream, 12 steps to realize your dream. My hope is we will post this too for you so you don't have to kind of scribble down your notes. So the first part is I want to kind of walk through this with you. And then the second half of this, I'm going to talk to you about 6 factors that you really need to look at, that you really need to write down and understand before you buy that rental. And then I'm going to finish the night up with 10 markets that I would be kind of honing in on if you're looking to buy your first rental. And then a couple other little surprises at the end here as far as areas to look for rentals. So let's get started. 12 steps. First step, very basic. Okay, very basic. And again, I literally have, from this point on, I have about 40 minutes. So this is a lot of information. I could literally write a 300-page guide on this information. So I'm going to give you the high level, and then you're going to have to do a little homework to kind of nail down some of these areas. But first is we got to figure out when we buy our first rental, the down payment, right? We got to figure out how much down payment do you need to secure your first rental property. And there's 2 ways to look at this. I'm going to break this down in 2 ways. Number one is an environment where we can get in with a low down payment. Now, I know everyone is probably jumping up and down in their seats, raising their hand and go, that's me, that's me. I don't have very much money. I want to learn how to do rentals with no money or very low money down. Well, folks, good news. That is possible. And these are the ways that you do that. Number one, I'm going to throw out some of these. You're going to learn how to quietly assume mortgages, where you're going to literally take over a mortgage that's already in place. You don't need to qualify. You need very little money, maybe closing costs, in order to take over that mortgage. That is a way that you can get into a rental with very little money down, quietly assuming a mortgage. Number two, you're going to look for opportunities where the owner of the property is willing to finance the deal. Whenever you're directly across the table from an owner and you're negotiating, you can put together a deal with very little money out of your pocket, still allowing you to buy that property and make the rents work. So owner financing, write these down. These will be posted. We'll give you a little more information about these as we go. Number three, you're going to partner with someone with cash. Okay, so you're going to bring a partner in. Now, again, I know some of you saying, I don't really want to bring a partner in on my rental properties. Folks, you might have to. You might have to early. Maybe eventually you won't need a partner. But if you can find opportunities, and folks, they're going to be around us, believe me, with this COVID and pandemic, the opportunities to buy rentals are coming and coming at you fast. Okay. If you can find a partner with cash, or what I call a statement is someone with a strong financial statement. If they can put up the capital, you find the deal, they put up the capital, you can create yourself a nice piece of a rental portfolio. Let's see, 9 to 10 years ago, when the last disruption happened, some of you remember this little campaign I have, our March to 100. My goal was to buy 100 rental properties with 2 cash financial statement partners. Now, we didn't make it. I pounded these guys and pounded these guys. We were too late to the party. We came up with approximately low 20s. We bought about 23, 24 rental properties. Again, my role was to identify the properties, manage the properties, renovate the properties, and eventually sell the properties. My take in that little portfolio is significant, but it's not 100%. They put up the capital. They put up the financial statement in order to get the takeout money. Folks, imagine that. Being a part of something is better than having nothing at all. Okay, so you need to find that partner if you want to get in with little or no money. Private money. Again, forget about partner. Just attract some private money for people that don't want to invest in the stock market. They're too nervous of what's going to go on, but they want a nice return secured against a hard asset. That is a way to get into property with very little money. Private money to a refinance. So let's take another step. So you're borrowing private money. This could be hard money. Okay, you're securing the property. And then you're getting it renovated, getting rented. And then after a period of time called seasoning, you're refinancing that property out, getting rid of that more expensive money. And now you own that property for the next 10, 15, or whatever years. Very good way. And then finally, unsecured debt. What does that mean, John? Well, unsecured debt means there are strategies that you can employ where you can garner enough money for a down payment. Credit card advance, line of credit, home equity, life insurance, mutual fund borrowing against. If you have any kind of asset that you can borrow against, including a credit card, if you have 4 or 5 credit cards and each have $10,000 line of credits, that's $50,000 that you have access to with your signature. If you have good credit, you can go into a bank still today and get an unsecured line of credit. Folks, this money is not for, and you've heard me say this before, this is not for Wizards games, hockey games, going to Las Vegas. We can't do any of this anyways now. Concerts. This is strictly money set aside for business purposes. You can use that in order to secure a nice long-term rental property. Those ways are ways that you can get into a rental property with little or no money down. Now let's take it the next step. Larger down payments. How are we going to come up with larger down payments? Most banks today, if you go to a bank and you ask to get qualified for a rental property, they're going to ask you how much down payment you have. Generally, they're going to require 15 to 20%, probably minimum, in order to get that rental property, maybe a little bit more. So how do you come up with that kind of money? Say it's a $200,000 property. You got to come up with literally $30,000 to $40,000. Where are you going to come up with that? Folks, again, I'm giving you the truth here. Number one, your savings. Sometimes you have to save up and go crazy and live frugally to save up that money to buy that first rental property. Sometimes you have to take a second, third, fourth gig. Maybe you're doing some online training. Maybe you're delivering pizzas. Maybe you have a special skill that you can do on the side. Folks, you need to raise some capital if you want to buy some of these properties, okay? Now, again, don't get discouraged because there's plenty of ways. There's probably more ways to get into rentals with little money than there is putting up chunks of money. Maybe you receive a bonus. Instead of going out and spending that, you put it aside to buy a rental property. Maybe you get an inheritance. Now, again, I'm not going to receive an inheritance. My parents are not going to leave me with an inheritance. In fact, I'm probably going to help them through some of their golden years. I already am a little bit. But if you do receive an inheritance, don't go blow it. Put it aside. Invest in something long-term, something in Economics 101 I learned many, many years ago. My first econ class in college, my professor stood up in front of the class. I remember to this day. He says, folks, you can invest in guns or you can invest in butter. What do you want to invest in? Folks, I learned that you need to invest in guns, meaning you need to invest in assets that are cash flowing, that are appreciating. You don't want to invest in butter. What is butter? Butter is fancy gaming systems, fancy cars, things that lose value as soon as you buy them. Invest in guns, and eventually you can invest in butter. Hopefully that makes sense. So larger down payment. You might have to do that occasionally. You might have to have savings, bonus, inheritance. Folks, the good news is most of the rental properties that I own and bought, I have done with little or no money out of my pocket. Now, I have bought some larger properties. I own a couple commercial properties. One in particular I paid $1.2 million for in 2004. I had to put up $300,000. That was from savings, and I had to pump that money in there. Now, from day one, that property generated a 10% cash on cash return of that $300,000. So I received a 10% return, $30,000, and it's grown every year. Grown every single year, lack of a better word, for the past 16 years. Okay, so sometimes you have to put that savings in, you get a return, and you keep moving on. It'll be a long-term asset. That's number one. Number two and number three, 12 steps, okay? Down payment. Number four, I guess, is financial profile. Now, again, I'm starting from basic and going a little bit more. You need to put together your financial profile. What does that mean? Where are you? Where are you right now, okay? Where are you? What's your credit like? What's your credit profile like? Is it good, bad, and different? If it's crappy, folks, you got to work on it. There's ways to improve your credit. If your credit is 760 or higher, okay, you're in good shape. You're going to get the best rates. If you don't know your credit, you've never had it pulled, go to creditkarma.com and pull a free report. Just have an idea of what your credit is and what you need to do to get it as high as you possibly can. What is your income? You know your income. Do you need to increase your income in order to qualify for some rental properties? What is your debt ratio? Folks, this is like anything else. You need to prepare yourself to buy that rental before we even start looking for it. And also get your tax returns together. Any bank is going to ask for the past 2 years tax returns. If you're self-employed, folks, this can be a problem. I'm just being honest with you. Self-employed people in the real estate game, I'm raising my hand, both hands. I've been doing it now for 25 years. Our tax returns are different, right? They're a little bit different. Any self-employed person's tax return is a little bit different. I don't get X amount of dollars in a W-2. And at the end of the year, I said, okay, John, you made $100,000 and here it is. And you're paying taxes on that. You get a few deductions and boom, this is your tax rate. No, ours is a little bit different. We bring money into the business, money goes out. So we write off as much as possible, including any depreciation we have on properties, sometimes ongoing renovation expenses on properties. We have all sorts of deductions being in the real estate investment business and being self-employed. So at the end of the year, our goal is, in most cases, to write off as much as we can. So sometimes it looks like, hey, we only made $20,000. That's what we're paying taxes on because we have all these different write-offs. Now, when I go in front of a banker, that doesn't look very good. Well, you want to buy a $300,000 property, you only make $20,000 a year. So you have to go a little bit deeper with some of that underwriting. You have to explain a little bit to them about your business and about what you do. All right, this is your next step. Got to find a lender. All right, we got to find a lender. We're going to get you prepared. You're going to do your hard homework early because then when you're ready, opportunities are going to come flying your way. We got to find a lender. What do I kind of recommend for this? Well, if you're going traditional, right? If you're going traditional, you got to find local community banks. You're staying away from the Bank of Americas, the Wells Fargos, the Chases. You're looking for smaller regional banks, community banks. You're looking for lenders that have private pools of money. Now, I'm getting emails, you might be too, from not hard money lenders, but what I call pool lenders, lenders that have accumulated and put together X amount of dollars, a lot of dollars, millions of dollars, and they're willing to give you 5, 7, 10-year loans on rental properties as long as they fit their criteria. The rate might be a little bit higher, but again, as long as that cash flow works, you're willing to do that, especially to get into that property, get some cash flow going, and get some seasoning. Hard money. You need a hard money source, okay? John Peterson here at WREIA, we're one. We have other members in WREIA that are hard money lenders. You can find hard money lenders. Sometimes you need to use them to secure that property, go and renovate it, rent it, and then you'll take them out with a refinance. I talked about that. Same with a private money source. What is the difference? The difference is the private money is going to be a little less expensive than that hard money. Probably you won't have to pay points. So this could be cousins, parents, brothers, sisters, nephews, business associates. We can teach you how to raise that private money, but you need to identify that lender. So think about it. Let's review here a little bit. You got to figure out how you're going to get your down payment. You got to get educated and understand low down payment methods. You also have to understand large down payment methods. How am I going to raise capital? How am I going to increase my savings in order to buy rental properties? You got to work on your financial profile. You got to find that lender. Now you're starting to get ready. Now all that picture is getting ready, and you know the parts that you have to work on. Okay. Remember, folks, I'm going to make you an offer after this. I'm here to help you with any of this. I can literally sit down with all of you and break down all of this for you and prepare this with you to get you ready to buy this first property. So now we're getting to the more exciting part. Okay. We are looking for what types of properties now you're going to buy. Okay. What do you want to buy? Now, again, this is individual. I'm not going to give you just a blank statement of this is what you have to buy. You're going to determine this. Let me give you some ideas from my experience. There's a couple categories here. Single detached, single family homes. They generally appreciate and cash flow more than any other asset in the residential frame here, if you will. Okay. You might want to buy a townhouse. Right? They're a little easier to manage, right? You don't have the lawn maintenance. There's not as many things that maybe can go wrong. Some of you want to buy condos. I'm not a big condo buyer as a long-term rental because why? Because of that condo fee. I got news for you. It never goes down. Now, there were some opportunities a number of years ago where they were literally giving away condos. And some of you took advantage of that. I know some of you that bought a couple condos where they're cash flowing very well. You have equity and cash flow, even though the the condo fee is high. So I never say never do it. All right. Not never do it. But generally, condos are a little harder to cash flow. They're easy to manage because they're all contained, but they're a little harder to cash flow. And then finally, the best investment in the residential space, I shouldn't have said the single detached family. The best that I think by far is 2 to 4 units. Now, again, we're not here talking about multifamily investing. We're not here talking about commercial. This is residential. This falls under the residential category. 2 to 4 units. If you can find 2 to 4 units, man, that's fantastic. Now, unfortunately, if you're looking to invest here in Washington, D.C., we were not built that way. We don't have a tremendous amount of those, okay? So if you are, there's some in DC, obviously. There's some in different parts of the area. And if you can find them, great. But in some areas of the country, those are very, very common. And those are tremendous because think about it. Now you have a duplex. You have 2 units. You have each side renting out. If one goes down, you still have the other to pay expenses. And you can really multiply that and leverage that and have a very good cash flowing investment if you can find those duplexes or fourplexes or triplexes. If you're really after that, you're probably going a little bit outside of the Washington, D.C. metro area. We're going to be talking about those markets here shortly. So you have to decide that. What type of property are you? Just don't say, hey, anything to cash flows. Get specific. Have a good understanding. So when you find it, you're ready to pounce and you're ready to go. Next thing, now we're getting a little more exciting as we go along. The property source. In other words, where are we going to source properties? Where are we going to find properties? And let me just give you a few examples. Remember, you're ready to go. You have your financial profile ready. You have a couple lenders waiting and willing. You have the property that you're looking for. Now you're looking for those types of properties. Where do you go? these are obvious, right? You need realtors. You need realtors that can find them. They're in the market every day. You give them a very good pro forma, in other words, what you're looking for, and let them go out and scour the multiple listing service or scour their offices, and let them always be updating you when a new rental or a new property comes on the market that makes a little bit of sense. Always have a couple realtors out there looking for you. Social media. You can get into private Facebook groups. You can get into anything social media oriented and just announce and let people know what you're looking for, and be very specific in an area, in a zip code, in a neighborhood, what type of house you're looking for, what cash flow you're willing to take. You'll be surprised at how sometimes leads can pop up and you can take advantage of that. Wholesalers. Right? Wholesalers. I'm sure you are like me. If you're on any kind of wholesaler massive list, you're getting deals. A lot of times those deals don't make a lot of sense from a buy, renovate, and sell. There's not enough juice. There's not enough spread in those. But sometimes I see them often actually that they make a lot of sense, maybe as a longer term hold. They're allowing you to have some equity, some renovation, but they cash flow. So be on the lookout for wholesalers that are finding deals that might make good rentals. Of course, online sources, meaning you can post ads and you can post material to be very specific what you're looking for. And then all of us want bird dogs, right? We want people out there, as many people as we come in contact with. We've talked in REIA many times about 2-minute pitches, right? Maybe you redo your 2-minute pitch of, this is what I look, hey, my name is John Peterson, I'm a real estate investor, what I'm really looking for. And let me know if you come across anything like this. I'm looking for a single family house in 20854 that is below $400,000 that needs a little bit of work that I can rent to make good, some good cash flow, right? So you be very specific with your 2-minute pitch. And as you're networking, as you're out there, you're letting people know exactly what you want. Okay. So find a good lender, understand what kind of property you're looking for, have those property sources, those property leads, and just keep working those. Rental rates. Let's keep moving along here. Rental rates. How do we research those? Well, we can research them online. You obviously got Trulia and Zillow and all those different online platforms. You can ask local realtors what certain properties rent for in a neighborhood. You can go on the local multiple listing service and look at that. And you can also do your own research through calling on signs and finding out what different apartment complexes in the area are charging. You can come up with some good rental rates. That is probably not too difficult for you, but you need to know that, right? Because now we're going to cash flow. So cash flow, this is something that I'll recommend. You can, a very simple little program called mortgagecalculator.net. And you can put in your numbers and it'll spit out some things for you. But these are the things you got to take into account when you're doing residential cash flow numbers. Obviously, you know your down payment. You put that in. You know your principal and interest. In other words, what's your principal and interest going to cost you over the term of your loan, whether it's a 10-year, 15, or 30-year fixed loan. You're going to have property taxes. You got to factor those in. That's a monthly cost coming right out of the cash flow. You have an insurance cost. Call up a local insurance broker and get an idea of what a $250,000 rental property will cost you every single month. You have a maintenance number, right? And you might just want to start putting in a set number, like $150 or $200 a month, depending on the size and the scope and the age of the property, and just put that right into your cash flow numbers. You have a property management number. Now, if you don't want to manage these properties, you're going to have to put in anywhere from 8% to 10% monthly property management, right? You might want to manage them yourselves. You can set this up very easily to manage yourself, okay? I can show you how to do that. And then you also want to put a vacancy rate in there. Now, again, your goal obviously is to have things rented all the time, but there are times, we're going through one right now, where sometimes people can't afford rents, they have to move, or job relocation. So again, I would just put a set number in there. I would probably factor in 1 month over the course of 12 months. So maybe $150, $200 a month. So you can see you have a lot of costs here. And when you add all that up, okay, when you add all that up, you're going to have, hey, this property is going to cost me, $2,000 every single month to carry, right, in order to pay all these expenses. I got to make sure that that property generates me a cash flow. And folks, I can't tell you what the right cash flow is. It's certainly more than $2,000, right? You got to make more than $2,000. We're going to be talking about markets here in a minute where your goal is to create as much cash flow as you possibly can. That's why expensive areas, if you will, the cities, the LAs, the New Yorks, the DCs are harder to cash flow because the cost of our properties are so high. Whew, I got a lot of information for you tonight. All right, I'll keep going here. Finding good tenants. Again, we'll go through this. You find them through realtors, online advertising, yard signs. Okay, you put a yard sign in front of your rental. Thanks, Russell. Rent a meter. Great. Credit check sources. You want a source. I use buildium.com, but you can use other sources to get credit checks. Finding good tenants. You want to take professional pictures and post them online. You know, I find that a yard sign and online advertising works really, really well. And then letting the local realtor community kind of know that you have a rental in the neighborhood. I find that if you have really good online pictures and you have a couple online portals that you're plugging it into, people will find that and you will get calls. You will then qualify them. You'll maybe have an open house. You'll show them property. You try to show it at one time so you have multiple people coming through. You take applications. You run their credit. You look at their income and you determine whether or not they're going to be a good tenant for you. Again, tenant verification, there's a little bit more to that, but tonight, for our purposes, those are some of the things to look out for. And again, as I said about management, you got to decide whether you want that property management or not. That's going to be, you know, something that you're going to have to factor in. And then finally, on the 12 steps, inspections, renovations, and maintenance. Now, this is what I try to do. I try to identify properties that need cosmetic work. I want the systems to be in good shape. In other words, the roof, the furnace, maybe the windows, maybe electrical plumbing. And you can do inspections before you buy that to make sure of that. I'm not concerned about cosmetic things. That's where I can create value. New kitchens, updated bathrooms, flooring, painting, landscaping. All those things are relatively inexpensive to add value. I'm looking for for any rental I buy, I'm looking for, at the time I rent that property, I want a minimum of 15 to 20% of equity in that property. So on a $200,000 house, all in, closing costs, buying it, all in, I don't want to owe anything more than $160,000. Okay, I want immediate equity from day one in my property. So I'm looking for properties that need a little bit of work. Okay, a little bit of work. I want a head start on that appreciation. And it's going to allow me, when I refinance it with the bank, if I'm getting in with low down payment, when I refinance it with the bank, I already have that equity cushion in there. So when I do a little bit of that work, now all of a sudden that $200,000 property might be worth $220,000, $225,000. I only owe $160,000, so I can get all my money out and I can start over again. So it's a rinse and repeat type process. So you have to find properties that need a little bit of work. Maybe not trashed. If they're trashed, you obviously have to buy them lower. Okay. But those cosmetic properties of cash flow are gold mines. Those are the ones that you want to find. Okay. Now, Justin's going to put something up on the screen. I want to throw this out before I go through kind of the real estate markets I want you to focus in on. I do some mini mentoring. Some of you have taken part of that. This is basically exactly what it sounds like. This is 3 sessions. This can be one. They're really about 1 to 2 hours. We can do them online or we can do them in person. If you want me to help you set all this up and help you find that first rental. Now, there's a lot of stuff in these 12 steps here. A lot of steps that we have to go through. We would sit down. We would look at your financial profile. We would determine whether you can afford a large down payment, medium down payment, small down payment. If it's small or low, we would go through and educate you on those different ways to go low down payment. We would look at your financial profile. We would introduce you to a few lenders in order to get you set up and get you ready to buy that first rental. We would talk about the type of property that you want to buy. We would talk about where to find these properties. We would talk about those numbers, those cash flow numbers, and we go through step by step on each of those. So basically, we would set you up in order for you to buy your first rental property. If you're interested in that or any other subject, folks, I'm doing these in a lot of different subjects. You can just text rental, okay, to that number on the screen. I'd be happy to follow up with you. We can talk more about it and we can get you started. Because I find, even as Jim said, giving you information and getting training online and so forth is great. But it really helps to have somebody in your corner to walk you through, especially early on. You do not have to spend a fortune on this. Okay, it's literally $500. It's an hour to 2 hour, 3-time sessions. Okay, so it's roughly getting my time for less than $100 an hour. I think that's probably worth it. If you're interested in that, if you're serious about buying your first rental and you need some help, go ahead and reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you with that. All right, let's move on. Got a little more time here. Boy, this is going fast tonight. I need about 3 hours. Okay. 6 factors to consider on locating a solid rental market. Okay, I'm going to get through this because I want to talk to you about these rental markets. Now, first thing, put a good team together, right? You got to find a realtor. You got to find a contractor handyman. You got to find a loan outlet, meaning a lender. You got to find a property manager if you're going to use one. You got to find an insurance broker, and you got to find a title company. Those are 1, 2, 3, 6 things that you absolutely have to have. That is your team building. So you can see right now, before you even buy a property, there's so many things that you can do to get prepared to buy that rental property. Now, let's talk about these factors. These are the things that you need to look for when you know an area is ripe to buy rental property. Number 1, you want the housing stock to be affordable, okay? In a perfect rental market, the more affordable an area, the more opportunity is for investors to invest. So you want it to be affordable relative to salaries, okay? Speaking of salaries, wage growth. You want to find an area, okay, that is growing with wages. You want to see those wages and salaries growing in relation to the rents and the market appreciation. Okay. The percentages generally, when an area is growing, you want to see those wages growing by about 3%. Okay. 3.5%. So you want affordable housing, you want wage growth. Next thing you want, and I probably should have brought this first, is you want jobs, jobs, jobs. You want to invest in areas where there is job creation. You want dynamic, thriving economies that are not, old, stagnant, old industries. You want job growth, jobs, 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 because that's what drives people into these cities. That's what attracts people into these areas, because they want opportunity. They want a job. You want to be there to be providing rental housing in those neighborhoods, in those cities. Same thing, population growth. You want to see cities that are growing in population. Okay. You want to look at year-over-year population growth. So more people are heading into that city than are leaving on a year-to-year basis. Okay. Population growth, jobs, population growth is going to create wage growth, and you're going to have cities with affordable housing. And then finally, the last 2 is you want to see some property appreciation. You want to see property growth. Again, a year-over-year model. And again, this doesn't have to be, you're not going to see 10, 15, 20% year-over-year growth and appreciation. That market would be on fire. In fact, there was times where Nashville, Tennessee was posting incredible gains with appreciation. But you definitely want to see, 3, 4%. You want to see year-over-year growth in that value of that housing. Okay, because that's going to be a product of job growth and wage growth and affordable housing. You want to see that grow. And then rental yield. Basically, it's just rent coming in relation to property value. The higher the rental yield, the more you want to invest in that area with these other factors. Okay, if you see these 6 factors, if you see job growth, you see wage growth, you see affordable housing, you see good rental yield, you see a property's growing in value, that's the neighborhoods, or the properties or zip codes or cities that you want to just pounce on, okay? You want to pounce on. Now, I looked and researched and looked at different markets and encountered this market with that market, and I kind of came up with 10. There's probably plenty more, okay? My advice to you is, if you want to invest these are out-of-town markets. If you want to invest out of town, you got a little work to do. You got some research, right? You need to put your team together. You need to be familiar with that area. If you have any commonalities with this area, the better, meaning you have a cousin that lives there, or you lived there for a little while, or you grew up there, or you grew up in the town over, or the city over, or you have some knowledge of the city. The more of that connection, the better, right? It's not absolute, but I believe the more you have, the better. Okay, because that rental house is an asset. It's a business, and you want to not take this seriously, because if you don't, it can get you in trouble. All right. Here's some of the areas: Amarillo, Texas. Okay. Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida. You can see a lot of cities in Florida. Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Okay. These are not second tier cities, but these are cities under the radar where there is some jobs going. There's affordable housing. There's some wage growth. There's some price appreciation. You have Atlanta, Georgia. Now that's a bigger city. Now, when they say Atlanta, Georgia, I did a little digger deeping. That's kind of some neighborhoods and suburbs around it. Just take like a Washington and look around it. So you do some research around Atlanta, Georgia. Here's an interesting one. Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I've heard about Cedar Rapids, Iowa for many, many years, commercial and residential. I don't know anything about Cedar Rapids, Iowa, but it comes up on a lot of lists. This one I have some familiarity with because my son goes to Butler University, which is right outside of Indianapolis, Indiana. I've looked at property in Indianapolis. The cash flow is tremendous. It's tremendous. Jacksonville, Florida. I've also looked and I've invested in Jacksonville, Florida. Owning rental property in Jacksonville, Florida over the next 10 years, you will do very, very well. And I know some of you have looked in that market before. Here's another market. In fact, I'm doing a Starker exchange on a property that I own in Gaithersburg, and I'm taking the money out of Montgomery County for lots of reasons, and I'm reinvesting in a place called North Charleston, South Carolina. Some of you know my wife's from Charleston. We have property down at Kiowa and Seabrook. We understand that market. We are looking for a good cash flowing rental property that we can take some of the profits from our Gaithersburg townhouse down to the Charleston area. Louisville, Kentucky. I might know that market a little more. My second son is looking at a few colleges around Louisville, Kentucky. And then finally, this comes up on every list. Dallas, Fort Worth comes up on every list. Some of you know I did a multi-unit building down in Fort Worth many, many years ago. It's about a 65-unit building. I should have kept it. I did it with a partner. I was the mouse operations guy. We determined after we finished it, someone gave an offer and it was very good and we took it. I wish I still owned it. It probably would be worth 10 times what we sold it for. But Dallas Fort Worth is a thriving area. So those are just markets that when you kind of look around and they have the yearly lists and you kind of compile and you fit this one and that one, they come up and they're very popular. A lot of cities in Texas, a lot of cities in Florida, a lot of southern cities, okay? A lot of southern cities. Now, another list that I thought was interesting was some of the upper middle class. Where's that money going? I'll just rattle off some states from 10 to 1. 10 to 1. Number 10, Colorado, Washington State, Nevada, Idaho, some western states. People are migrating, people, upper middle class, people with money, young people with high salaries are going to these states. A lot of them are low taxes, low regulation, a lot of outdoor activities. You have Tennessee in the south. You have South Carolina, you have North Carolina, you have Arizona in the west. Texas and Florida come up all the time on places where people are migrating to, okay? Keep those in mind. And then finally, some other cities that come up on a list. Now, these don't have all those 6 factors we talked about earlier. They have a little population that's leaving. Maybe their jobs aren't as plentiful. Maybe wage growth isn't plentiful. But these are some cities that came up a lot. These are maybe a second tier city. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kimberly Stewart, you're out there listening, came up on a lot of lists. St. Louis, Lima, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, Birmingham, Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, Salisbury, Maryland. Hey, that's an hour, 2 hours away from most of us. Detroit, Michigan. You'll notice some of these are industrial. Some of them had some industrial component. They're revamping. I know Pittsburgh's going through. They had a lot of healthcare up there, a lot of banking up there. It was obviously an old steel town. So some of these cities you might want to keep an eye on, knowing that maybe you don't have as much appreciation, but you have better cash flow. So all of this is determined when you sit down and you figure out, hey, John, what do I want to invest in? What are my goals? Am I looking for stuff that appreciates a lot more, but maybe doesn't cash flow as well? Or am I looking for a lot of cash flow? I'm not that worried about appreciation. And that brings me back to, investing in your own backyard right here in Washington, D.C. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe you have to go out a little bit further. Folks, the great thing about this area is when real estate appreciates, this area does very, very well. We appreciate as well as any area in the country. Our downside is our cash flow. Our cash flow isn't as great. If you can find a property around here that gives you a little bit of cash flow, breaks even a little bit after putting a little money down with a little bit of equity like we did 9 years ago, jump on it, right? Or maybe you go out a little further. Maybe you go out to the Fredericks, or maybe you go out outer suburbs of Virginia a little bit. Or maybe you find that diamond in a rough where where it really works. Like, I found over my years, and I picked them off here or there. Okay. Maybe you go up to Baltimore. Okay. If you do a lot of research and you get a good team together, you can make a lot of money up there. Maybe you go all different sorts of places. So you don't have to necessarily go far, but I did want to let you know there are other cities around the country that are screaming at you. They're saying, come here, invest. All the factors are right. Now, again, if any of this interests you, and I hope this was helpful, and sometimes it gets so frustrated in this REIA meeting, so I have 45 minutes, and folks, I want to share with you for hours, but hopefully this got you excited and got you thinking about, hey, let's own a rental property. Folks, the real wealth in real estate is owning the real estate. It's not wholesaling. It's not buying, renovating, and selling. Those are components. Those are income generators. Take some of that money and invest in long-term, good performing real estate. And a lot of us start out with our first rental property. If you want to buy your first rental property and you need some help, literally for $500, I'm offering you a mini mentoring. And I hope some of you take advantage of that, because I would love to sit down with you, put all this together for you, and watch you find yourself buy that first rental property. Folks, I'm telling you what it is. It's $500. There's nothing more to it. It's 1 to 2 hour sessions we do online, or we certainly can meet in person, and we can walk you through this entire process that I laid out tonight. And at the end of it, you're going to be prepared to get out there and get your first rental property. And folks, that first one can be the hardest. But once you have that under the belt, you rinse and repeat. And then imagine if you could buy a good cash flowing rental property, just one every 2 years over the next 10 years. And folks, it goes fast. You will have 5 to 7 rental properties. And over time, you'll pay those down, accelerating those payments and pay those down. And your retirement, your money for college, whatever you want it for, will be very, very healthy, and you'll be happy. Believe me, excited and happy that you attended Washington REIA virtual meeting November 2020. Folks, I appreciate you hanging in there with me, listening. I wish you very well. We'll be back with you. If you have any questions, you have my cell phone, you have our email. Let us know. We'll be happy to get in touch with you. We are working harder than we've ever worked before, so I'm on it. Really 24 hours a day. I'm excited to be working with this COVID. There's not a whole lot else to do. So if we can help you, we can assist you. If you need have properties, you want to wholesale, you want to partner, let me know. If I can help you with this mini mentoring program on how to find your first rental, I'd be happy to do that. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you soon.